Hello, my name is Clemens Vasters. I'm Regional Director in Germany, and I'm going to talk about something that has to do with service orientation. But first I'm going to show you some pictures. This is Madison Square in New York City. There's a large building that you can see. That's the Metropolitan Life Insurance building, the old MetLife building. And I have a couple of pictures from inside that building. It may be interesting. So here's a storage array, and the lady is managing that storage array. Of course, there's no electronic access to that storage array. So the lady is actually the file manager, if you will. Here you have word processing in action. You see that the ladies have forms sitting here, and they're typing the next forms. In fact, they're filling out spreadsheets here right now. So this is the text processing and the Word and Excel division of that company. Here you have the claims departments. Claims come in, and so the ladies get all those letters. As you can see, all the ladies do all the work, and the men are just standing around and checking things out. Horrible work times. So the ladies are getting all the insurance claims in this company, and then they go to the archive and check out whether the people actually have an insurance, and if they do, then they pick out the files and then they submit them into the corporate processing. And here we have a sheet of rates that you can pick out, and then you have a form that you can fill in to apply for your insurance, or most likely your insurance agent will do this. What I find really interesting about this is that all of these things worked without any computer support. There's no computers, no workflow engines, no spreadsheets, no spell checking, no email, no databases, none of this. And yet, all of this worked. So that's an interesting exercise to think about how those things worked. And maybe we can learn something from this for the information systems we build today. So we have departments, and we have plenty of them. We have risk assessment, we have rate calculations, we have claims handling, sales support, and all those different departments. And there are departments there which don't really exist today anymore. The rate calculations department is a department with mathematicians, and they calculate rates. And that's something that doesn't really exist today anymore, because there's just a computer program which does all those things. Then we have the communication, and communication is done by a small army of male boys who are running around. They're picking up the files as they go through the floors, and then they're routed usually into the basement. And in the basement they are repacked on different carts and then carted around. Sometimes you may have an express courier who takes them from one department to the next department. And if you want to route something, you simply make a note on the folder. You put your files that you want to have routed into a folder. You make a note on that folder, and this is how you route things. But everything goes around in one way, messaging way. So you create a message, meaning you're writing something on a paper, and then you send this out. Processes exist too. A process starts with you file a claim, for instance, as a customer that you send a letter. That letter comes in, and then it's handled by several departments. It goes through several departments. At the time, processes were not modeled this way, likely, but every clerk knew what to do next. The decisions influence where things go. Every step is triggered by some input and yields some output. And you can see over here the folders. So it comes from Department A, comes from Department Q, and then the next step is Department T. All the communication is completely formalized, as is necessary if you have a large organization. You formalize communication by printing all the essential things, and by printing contract conditions, by printing really placeholders for all the information you require. So you schematize that information, and that makes information easier to find. It's really hard for you to forget something. The information is easier to supply for those people, and it's much safer from a legal perspective as well. So how does all this relate to, all these things relate to services? How does all this relate to information technology? Well, if you look at the tasks that people were doing, and if you look at how departments got eliminated over time, the departments that really got eliminated are those who do the completely deterministic work. People sitting there calculating things. Everything that is all this boring, routine, predictable stuff that is now done by computers. Everything that has to do, of course, with communication. You don't have an army of mailboys anymore who are sending stuff around. No, you do that with computers because information can flow independent of, it doesn't have to be physical if you don't need paper. So all the deterministic, routine, predictable, repeatable, very formalized things are today done by computers. The non-deterministic things still are done by human beings and will be for, hopefully, forever. So they're not entirely predictable, not always repeatable, they're governed by rules, hard to formalize. But there's steps in those processes. So if you look at a workflow process from the perspective of 1920, you have paper that flows around this workflow, and you have non-deterministic tasks and deterministic tasks. Today we can automate some of those, and there's some that we can't automate. But I would like you to just keep thinking about the 1920s process as I continue elaborating about how those things map. A department is a service. A department offers specialized expertise and renders a set of well-known, well-defined services to the organization. It publishes or otherwise advertises the concrete services offered, meaning the department is really has a collection of things that it can do towards an organization, and every department can do so. If you need to have some funky graphics done, you likely go to your marketing people. The concrete functions that every department offers are operations. If you go to your financial collections department and you have, you want to have an invoice reminder written, then you go there and they will do so. If you have written the original invoice yourself, you probably have to bring the invoice. Otherwise, you just trigger them, or they trigger it themselves. But that's a function equivalent to an operation. Every employee is a service instance. So it plays one or more roles in the workflow. Maintain a session for a context. Maintaining a session in a context means that if you are in a sales process, you know everything about your customer, and that's maintaining state. Maintaining state about this individual sales process. You learn about them. You learn about their spouse. You learn about their birthday. You sent them champagne for their birthday and all those things. So that's maintaining state. That's maintaining conversation, just as much as conversations are maintained between services. And letters and files in the 1920s context are just the messages that we have today. They're routed through the organization. They drive the workflow. So the process implementation in the 1920s is that you give someone an instruction sheet. You say, if the form A123 arrives, perform some certain activity, annotate and decide based on factors whether to form to department Q or T. And the messages, the forms are sent as soap envelopes. You can imagine. And of course the computer can understand that soap envelope really well. But if you're a human, you need to have something that translates the soap envelope for you. So if we put workflow in the middle, if we assume we have a virtual mail boy who's sending us messages, then we need to have something that translates the messages for us. In the end, everything is triggered by a form and everything yields a form. So we get some SOAP message through, let's say, Outlook. We have a specialized application sitting inside of Outlook which can decode the messages just in the same way as Outlook decodes an appointment. You get a special form. You could get a SOAP message and you get a special form. That would be a wizard. You load all the collateral data, all the reference data, meaning you have a visualization of the message you're getting, that task you're getting. You click through, you solve your problem, and then you click finish, and you yield another message into the process, and you send that out to the workflow engine. So the consequence from taking this parallel is we didn't have computers and everything was workflow driven. The workflow drove the organization. Now everything is sort of centered on software. And I think we should go back to a workflow driven world where the process really drives the organization, forms, information drives what everybody's doing. And just as much as people used to have a stack of paper on their desktops, now they simply have an inbox with the tasks filled up, and they just pick a task, and they have the right user interface for it. They consume a message, they create multiple messages, and they're done. Every interaction with a service-oriented user interface should be 5 steps, 4 steps, and you're done with your work. From that perspective, forcing users through a main menu or through something where they have to pick the tool for their task is really something we shouldn't subject them to anymore, because the system, the process really knows what's next. And you still have the liberty to pick the tasks you really want to do. And that's it for this talk. Thank you for your attention.